Good morning. What is American Gnosis? Let's talk about it. This video is for the spiritual folks, particularly the spiritual but not religious, but anyone's welcome to watch it. It has to do with some work I'm doing, a project I've taken on that will result in a blog that'll probably be pretty long on American Gnosis. And so it has to do with a spiritual tradition that is unique to the United States. And I want to talk about that a bit. As an aside, today is also the very first day of my class, Introduction to Lamplighting. So I'm really excited about how that's going to go. More on that later. So, Gnosis is a word with an interesting history. It's spelled Gnosis. It's a Greek word, and it means to know or to understand. There's other words in Greek that mean to know stuff. But Gnosis, down the centuries, has come to mean a kind of understanding that's experientially based. Gnosis is when you've got one of those peak experiences that you learn something from. It's having an insight about something. It's when you have a dream and you suddenly realize what the dream's trying to tell you. That's a form of Gnosis. When you're listening to an old story like a myth, and you suddenly realize there's a deeper level of meaning, that's a form of Gnosis. Things like that, right? So deep understanding or spiritual experience, that sort of thing. So we've got a tradition here in the States that's based on that. And the reason I'm putting this together and the reason I'm doing this video is because very little has been said about it directly, although some scholars have commented on different parts of it. But the public doesn't know much about it. So it's a form of spirituality that's fed by many different sources, both in the country and outside of it. And it begins a very long time ago with indigenous forms of religion and spirituality that have always been here. Those at the tribal level continue to evolve, like all spiritual systems do around the world. The root of American Gnosis is indigenous. So that's one stream that feeds this mighty river. Another is the Black Church and spiritualities that came here brought by African slaves from West and Central Africa. And the traditions they brought, the rituals, the deities, all the different forms of practice. And for them, spirituality was a yearning for freedom that you can hear strongly expressed when you listen to spirituals. So moving. That yearning for freedom and a way of strengthening community in the face of terrible adversity. So there's that influence in American Gnosis, a very strong influence. There's also the diasporic influence of Black people coming here, of other groups of people coming here, Caribbean religions, things like that. And all along the way through this big river of spirit, the currents that make it up are all kind of esoteric. Not in the sense necessarily of being a cult, but just being close to spiritual experience all along the journey. So we've got New England transcendentalism as part of this mix. We've got New Thought. We've got spiritualism, all these different things that have popped up. There's the first Great Awakening that happened in this country, the second Great Awakening. New Age spirituality is part of this to some extent as well. And so the river gets bigger and bigger as it rolls through time. And I'll be mentioning other aspects of it along the way. But the reason I think this is important to know is that Americans tend to be rather rootless. And we're largely unconscious of how much that affects us psychologically. We tend to think of rootless as something like moving from place to place, which is certainly part of it. But I think it's important that we realize that we do have a tradition that binds us all together. And I think this tradition should be part of an attempt to tell new stories about the experience of being American, about the experience of being a resident of the United States. In all of its beauty, terror, inclusivity, problematic conflict, and everything else that goes with it. A story that's big enough to hold all that and still leave us inspired. So that's a few words about it, about American Gnosis. I'll have more to say about it once I finish my reading and get down to some of the writing. I'm at the note-taking stage right now, but I'll finish by noting a couple of characteristics of this. So American Gnosis has always linked itself to practical action in the world. You especially see that in Black spirituality in the Black church, where spirituality means taking care of people, solidifying communities, standing up to oppression. In its different forms, American Gnosis has always done that. The Transcendentalists were also protesting slavery. They were standing up, some of them for women's rights. You really see that in Margaret Fuller's work. So there's this practical link that William James's philosophy speaks of. So does that of Cornel West and what he calls prophetic pragmatism. So we've got that side of American Gnosis. It's also inspiration driven, it's uplifting, and to use a phrase that I've been using for many years now, American Gnosis says things don't have to be this way. We can do better. So more on that as we go. Thanks.